Hi everyone. I wanted to make this quick video about my experience with feline leukemia. I just got done with a battle with feline leukemia with my favorite cat in the whole world, and I was scouring the internet looking for all kinds of information that I could find, ways that I could help him, trying to figure out how far along he was and, how much time I would have left with him. And there were, a lot of just articles about how the disease works and, how the virus is spread, but it all seemed about the same. And I was looking for personal experiences, from real people that could say this is what it was like. And I know it's different for everybody, and certainly my experience is not going to mimic yours, but the thing I found the most that helped me deal with this was talking to other people who have dealt with this also. That was the biggest help to me. I want to make a quick shout out to the cat site forums. Really friendly people over there. So today I'm just going to share with you my brief story about my cat. 3 years ago, I had just lost a kitten, and it was one of the most painful situations that I had ever experienced. I don't think I had ever experienced true mourning until that time. It was intense. What happened was we were moving furniture and she got stepped on, and it was me that stepped on her, and that just shook me up. And so I was looking for another cat, because I had one cat at the time. Her name was Mayumi, and she was a pretty grumpy cat. She was like the real grumpy cat. We all know tartar sauce is not a grumpy cat, but Mayumi, she was like the grumpy cat, right? And she wasn't very like affectionate and stuff, and so I wanted another cat, to be that sweet, cuddly cat that, would sit in my lap and let me pet him or her. And so that led me to my new cat, who I adopted at a nearby PetSmart, and I named him Box. And before you look at me like I'm crazy, the reason why I named him Box was based off of a iPhone game at the time called Box Cat. Now it's available on Android too. But I just loved that game. It's just an old school arcade style side scroller game, and I just thought it was so cute. And the cat on there is also orange, and that's the kind of cat I got. I got an orange tabby. And so I thought, well, that's just a fun, cute name him Box. And he turned out to be so sweet. He was so loving. He would wait for me at the door when I would come home from work, and he would always try and get those last minute cuddles in bed with me before my husband would make him leave the room. And he even learned how to sit. If you look at some of my other videos, one of them I have a video compilation of him sitting on command, and eventually he did learn a second trick, but unfortunately I never got it recorded of him standing up on command as well. He was a very smart cat, but he was also a very sweet and affectionate cat, and I think he wanted ultimately to please us, kind of like a dog. He was very dog-like. And the only medical issue he ever had in his life was, he would have occasional eye drainage, and when we first adopted him from PetSmart, the Humane Society that was associated with that PetSmart told us, oh, don't worry, he's not sick, he just has allergies. And so it's just a constant thing. And we're like, okay, not a problem, I'll take Kleenex and, I'll wipe his eyes for him. And that's just what I did. Didn't worry about it. Unfortunately, which, bad on me, I didn't ever take him to the vet for a checkup. At the time, we went through some financial crises, and I just couldn't afford it. I'll be honest with you. I just couldn't afford it. I just recently got a new job where I was able to afford it, but it wasn't long after that he got sick. And I just kind of had like this wait and see attitude for about a week and a half, you know, because I'm thinking, oh, well, you know, Miumi's been sick before and, you know, she pulled through, you know. And it seemed like he just had congestion. Like he was just sneezing a lot, you know, just kind of, he sounded congested in his nose. Well, he didn't get better, and so I took him to the vet. And they didn't run any blood work or anything. They just listened to his breathing and said, oh, well, he's just got an upper respiratory infection. So here, take home these antibiotics and he'll be fine in a couple weeks. And so that's what we did. And sure enough, you know, he got better and he was fine. But about 3-4 weeks later, I want to say, those symptoms came back. And so instead of waiting so long that time, I knew what was going on. I took him right back to the vet. And they said, oh, well, you know, he's still got an infection. So they gave him more antibiotics. And I'm thinking, okay, if he gets sick one more time, I'm going to insist that they do some kind of blood work on him, because it just seemed kind of odd for him to get sick again so quickly, unless he just never got over it, but he seemed to have. So we got him back on the antibiotics. He got better. And then about 2 weeks this time, 2-3 weeks later, he didn't have the same symptoms. It was like, kind of like he was just very lethargic, and he seemed to be in pain whenever I would try and pick him up, and maybe a little bit congested, but it wasn't quite the same. And so I knew something was definitely wrong, and I wanted answers. So the next time I wasn't able to go, but my husband went and took Box to the vet. And he was like, hey, I want you to do blood work, because there's no reason why he should be getting sick like this. So they did some blood work, and it came back that he was feline leukemia positive, which at the time I didn't know anything about feline leukemia. I had heard of it, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about it. And so initially, the vet that diagnosed him, she was very optimistic, and she said, well, you know, a lot of cats with feline leukemia live for years if you take good care of them, and, you know, we'll get them back onto medicine, but this time we'll make it a stronger dose. Maybe he just didn't completely get over that infection the first time, and he just really needs to get over this infection, and then he'll get better. And so she gave him even stronger antibiotics this time. And, you know, she wasn't acting like, you know, it was a, you know, doom and gloom kind of situation. But anyway, when I found out about this, I was doing research left and right. I mean, I think every night I was looking up articles on feline leukemia and just trying to get answers and find out and get a feel for the situation. Come to find out that there are multiple ways for a cat to contract feline leukemia. Usually it's from cat to cat contact, passed through the saliva. It could be through bathing each other, sharing the same food and water dish, or even sharing the same litter box. Or, which I think was in Box's situation, it could be passed from the mother, either through her milk or literally while she's still pregnant with them. The babies could just be feline leukemia positive from the get-go. The average lifespan for a cat, due to my research, once they come in contact with it and become infected with it, is about 3 years. It's not very long at all. And when I took my other cat to the vet to see how the situation was going, basically I wanted to ask him, okay, what about my other cat? Because I had heard that feline leukemia was highly contagious. And I took my other cat to the vet and got him on his first feline leukemia booster. I didn't mention this earlier, but the first time Box got sick, the vet recommended that I rehome Miumi, because she was bullying Box all the time and hitting at him, and she didn't, you know, she was a very mean cat. I mean, she wouldn't, you know, hurt him or anything, but she was always swiping at him and just hissing at him and just growling at him. She was not a nice cat. And the vet thought that Box's sickness was due to the stress that Miumi was putting on Box. And so I found her a new home with a very nice older couple in the country. And in the meantime, I found a new shelter cat who was very laid back, and I thought he would be the perfect companion for Box. And at the time, this was before I knew Box had feline leukemia. Otherwise, I would have not adopted another cat so soon. And it was this cat that I was taking to the vet to get his feline leukemia booster because he had no protection against this virus, and it's a highly contagious virus. And I was talking to the vet while I was there with this other cat. His name's Nigel. And he had a different outlook on the situation. He said, and this was a different doctor that I talked to than the one who was all optimistic about it. He said from his experience, once a cat becomes ill from the disease, that they don't have very long. I mean, it's pretty much it, and they're going to just keep getting sick from it. Like, it's just, there's going to be complication after complication after complication. Because with feline leukemia, there's like multiple stages to it. Some would say there's like 6 stages of it, you know, from the initial contact to the, you know, either fighting off or letting the virus overcome the cat's body. I think of it more like 2 stages after initial contact. You know, the virus can lay dormant for several years, and during that time, the cat could, you know, defend against the virus and possibly even expel the virus from their body. But during that second stage, the virus is won, and there's nothing that can be done about it, and the cat's just going to get sick all the time. And that vet thought that that was pretty much Box's situation, whereas the other vet, who was more optimistic, you know, I don't know, I guess she didn't think that. Well, after this 3rd round of antibiotics, it was only a week or so that Box was better. It wasn't the same recovery as he had had the prior times, and it seemed like each time the recovery period just got shorter and shorter and shorter. And but after about a week of being well, he didn't get congested, but he slept nonstop. You know, I know cats sleep a lot, but he slept all the time. He would only get up to just eat like a little bit, drink just a tiny bit, and then just go right back to bed. He wouldn't play. He would only want to lay in one spot, and he got to the point where he didn't want to leave the bedroom and go out and socialize with the other cat, Nigel, who they've become, you know, pretty good friends with. Like, they got to know each other and they liked each other. He didn't want any of that. He just wanted to be alone. And so I let him be, you know, in the bedroom by himself, and I would, of course, come in and check on him and try and encourage him to eat and drink. After a while, he didn't even want to eat and drink anymore. And I could just see it in his eyes. You know, his 3rd eyelid was coming over his eyes, and he just looked miserable, like something wasn't right. And I touched his nose and his ears to see, you know, if maybe he had a fever. He didn't seem to have a fever. He didn't seem congested. I didn't know what was going on, and I figured it might have been something internally. You know, maybe he was having kidney problems. You know, that's fairly common with feline leukemia, but I didn't know. So as soon as I could, I made a new appointment with the vet, and I told him, hey, you know, something's wrong, and we need to figure out what's going on with Box. And so I took Box back to the vet. And, you know, it was the doctor that was more optimistic, and she's like, well, I don't see anything, you know, like a congestion or a fever. You know, he seems pretty good. You know, his eyes seem pretty clear, you know. And I said, well, he's not eating or drinking, and all he wants to do is just sleep all the time. And so she asked if we wanted to do blood work on him, and I said, yes, please, because I think it's something internally that we can't see. And it turned out that that was exactly the case. She came back, and she said that basically his immune system was attacking itself. And I'm not a medical person. I mean, computer science is my major, not medical, so I don't know much about medical stuff. But from what I remember of the situation, I think she was saying his white blood cell count was a lot larger than his red blood cell count. And this was causing him to be very ill, and it was just going to keep getting worse. And I think something about lymphoma, which I hear is very common with feline leukemia as well. She only had one option. she said that we can shut down his immune system with a bunch of steroids. Pump him full of steroids, shut down his immune system. But then because he's also, feline leukemia positive, if we shut down his immune system, that opens him up for potential infection that much more. It's like having AIDS as a human. You get infection so easily and you can die from a cold. Well, it's the same thing with feline leukemia. If we shut down his immune system, he could get sick really easily. And so at the same time, giving him a whole bunch of steroids, we were going to also have to give him a whole bunch of antibiotics. And then there was some other kind of medication she wanted to put him on. And this whole thing was going to span about 3 to 4 weeks before we would even know if it would work. And she had no guarantee that it would work at all, or that he wouldn't just be flat out miserable. And frankly, I just did not like the sound of it at all. Shutting down one's immune system, and then knowing already all that he had been through. He had been sick since November of 2016. And here it was February 2017, and he had been sick 3 times. And now he's sick again. And it just seemed like each time just kept getting worse. And it was like we were trying to run a race that we could not get ahead. We couldn't finish it. It was just going to keep, no matter how much we kept trying, it was just going to keep catching back up with us. And it was at that time that I made the decision. What I believed was not only best for me, my husband, Nigel, but Box as well, was to let him go. And I thought when that moment came that it was going to be the hardest thing in the world to do. But I think by that point, after all we had been through, seeing him get sick and then better and sick and better and sick and better, like a yo-yo. And it was also like a yo-yo with my emotions, because I'd get all excited. Oh, maybe he's better. Maybe it was just and then he's sick again. And, oh, he's better. And he's sick again. Oh, he's better. Oh, he's sick again. And not knowing from one day to the next, am I doing the right thing by even keeping him alive? Because I've heard some people say that, don't wait too long, you'll regret it. You don't want to keep your cat around and let him suffer like that, just for you, you need to do the humane thing. And so, quite honestly, I felt like this big weight lifted off my shoulders when I made that decision. But it was very painful at the same time. It wasn't the same as when I lost that kitten so suddenly. She died on the way to the emergency vet. When I stepped on her, what happened was her back got broken. And she was very small. She was a very small little cat. And we rushed her to the emergency animal clinic. We didn't know what was wrong. And she died right there on the table. We didn't have time to even x-ray her or figure out what the situation was. She just died right there. And that was a shock, and I felt horrible. I felt guilty because it was my fault. But with Box, it was different. It was easier, and the mourning process has been different. It comes and goes in waves. There'll be days where I just think about the good times that we've had, and how I miss him. But then there's days where I really miss him. I'm happy that I have the other cat, Nigel, who I adopted, to be Box's companion. But he's not Box, and I can't expect him to replace Box. He's a different cat with a completely different personality. And sometimes, when I face that reality, that just makes me ache that much more for Box, because he was like my baby. He was one of those cats that just wanted to be with you all the time and want to be doing whatever you're doing. And, I'd pack him around on my shoulder every morning. He just wanted to be with me. And I miss that. But I believe ultimately that I did the right thing. And so it's crazy because during this whole situation, I couldn't believe that it was happening because it was so sudden. He lived his whole life here with me. The only thing he had going on was those allergy symptoms he had. But that was it. You know, he never got sick once. And then all of a sudden, in November of last year, boom, he's sick. And then I find out he's feline leukemia and may not have much longer to live. And I feel like my baby was just robbed from me so suddenly, you know. And I'm thinking, he's only 3 years old. He would have been turning 4 this summer. That's such a short life to live, you know. And I was thinking, he's such a great cat. He deserved more. But ultimately, it's not up to me, you know. I'm just thankful that I was able to give him a happy home and to give him lots and lots of love, because, you know, the sad truth is that most humane societies, most shelters, they euthanize feline leukemia positive cats because they're just so hard to adopt out, and because also the virus is so contagious. It's so easily spread between cats, and it would be hard to keep one quarantined all the time and then to find somebody who could take him. So, you know, the funny thing is that they never checked him for feline leukemia. At least not anywhere on the paperwork I received from PetSmart did they ever check him for feline leukemia. Which I think is strange, because usually they do, especially when they spay or neuter, which he was neutered. But never said anywhere on there that they checked him for that. So it's very likely he could have been positive from birth. And if they had checked him, maybe I would have never had the pleasure of getting to know Box. So in some ways it's a sad, sad story, but in other ways it's a happy ending, I think, because I was able to give Box an opportunity to live the fullest life he could live with his current situation. And right now we are waiting to get Nigel checked for feline leukemia. It was recommended that after we give him his feline leukemia boosters that we wait out 2 months or so, because you know, with initial contact with the virus, it could take, you know, a while for it to show up in the cat's blood. So in about 4 weeks, we're going to have Nigel tested for feline leukemia. And it's a very scary thought. I mean, when I found out that Box had feline leukemia, I already had Nigel. And that put even more stress on me, because I was constantly trying to figure out how can I protect Nigel from this, and it seemed unfair to him because I just adopted him, and now I'm putting him in this potentially dangerous situation where he could get sick. And so that was just an extra layer of stress on top of everything else, you know, trying to keep their food and water separate. And for a while they were completely physically separate, which I know most people would recommend with a feline leukemia cat. You never mix a positive and a negative together. But after a while, I mean, living in an apartment, it got really difficult, and they actually liked each other. So I did let them play a little, but I did not let them share the same food or water dish or the litter box. I had a separate litter box for Box and a separate litter box for Nigel. And I was very good about keeping them clean, just in case one of them managed to get over to the other one. But we will see. We will see how Nigel does, and maybe I'll post a video soon about Nigel's results and where to go from here. And I hope that this was helpful to someone out there who just found out maybe their cat has feline leukemia. I hope the video wasn't too long, but maybe it was beneficial to you. And I wish you the best of luck. See you next time.